Hello, fire friends. It's Kelly Grady here, and I am just standing outside of Orono City Hall following another heated Orono City Council meeting. Tonight, Councilmember Benson did call out Denny Walsh for his bad behavior, his verbal abuse towards residents and citizens. And what she said, I was moved to tears. I'm going to go ahead and just cut to that right now. I don't need to say anymore. Listen to her.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to take a little bit more time than I would normally, but I have a couple of things that I need to get through here tonight. I'm going to talk about the coffee with the mayor because this monthly event needs to be reevaluated. It was implemented about a year and a half ago by the mayor. It was not part of a council plan or a staff plan on engagement or outreach, but these are official events and they're held here in council chambers. They use city funds, which are tax dollars, for refreshments. And in the July-August newsletter, this event was described as a great way to network, connect, have an easy conversation on any topic that may be on your mind. Please join us. So these are promoted as friendly social events. And normally I would support this type of initiative because I think accessibility of elected officials is very, very important, and it's a good thing. In this case, it's not. And it's creating unnecessary liability for our city. What occurred at that last coffee on August 14th highlights a number of risks. The event was videotaped, it was posted to social media, and it was widely shared. And our city is responsible for what happens. And by the way, they're taking place here in city council chambers, these events. And our city is responsible for what occurs at these coffees. They're official events, which is why I'm bringing it up in my report tonight. So I'm going to discuss 3 areas of risk associated with that August 14th meeting. 1 is inadequate oversight. 2 is verbal abuse. And I understand that's a strong term, and I don't use it lightly. And number 3 is providing inaccurate information about city business to the public. So I'm going to briefly discuss each of these and provide suggestions to address this risk going forward. The first issue at the coffee was inadequate oversight. The events, according to the newsletter, are coffee with the mayor. And on August 14th, about 35 minutes in, the mayor left the room to meet with somebody, and he didn't end the event, and he also didn't return. There was no staff in attendance, and in fact, staff have never attended these events. An appointed member of the Orono Planning Commission was in attendance, as was a number of citizens. And after the mayor left, for the remainder of the event, which was longer than the mayor had attended, it was 45 minutes more, the planning commissioner began to act as somewhat of a proxy host. And it was unclear to me watching the video if he was acting as an appointed city official or if he was attending as a citizen or a combination of both. He mentioned several times that he was taking off his planning commission hat while answering questions from the public, which really underscores the confusion and how unclear his role was at that coffee. And the planning commissioner may have been attempting to help, given the mayor's absence, because he did reference his years of experience and knowledge of city business. However, about an hour into the coffee, the planning commissioner mentioned that he was privy to information about Orono's contract for fire service with Long Lake. He went on to say to a citizen that unbeknownst to them and not widely discussed in public was, quote, "It was already negotiated and discussed preemptively a long time ago that Orono would be building their own department." So my takeaway from the last 45 minutes of that coffee and the planning commissioner's interactions with the public was that more questions were created than answered. Why was the planning commissioner privy to fire service matters that were not widely known to the public? The situation was even more troublesome given that Orono is currently engaged in a lawsuit about fire service, so what is said about this issue matters. The planning commissioner also had a very lengthy and contentious exchange with several people, making implications about their motivation for coming to the coffee and also why they were asking the questions they were, which again, according to the newsletter, is exactly what the public is invited to do. And this resulted in a great deal of upset and frustration. The mayor left his event, and rather than ending it, a planning commissioner acted as somewhat of an authority for the rest of the coffee, given that he did have experience. And he answered a wide range of questions about taxes, home assessments, and fire service. And that's what creates risk, because it's not what the event was promoted as, and this individual, the planning commissioner, is neither an elected official nor a member of staff. The second area of risk is verbal abuse, and I understand this is a strong term, and it's also an accurate one. At the coffee, the mayor used his position of authority to engage with citizens in a manner that was abusive. The hallmark of verbal abuse is using language that humiliates, demeans, and belittles a person. It can include insults and name-calling, which is exactly what happened. I watched the entire video, and for members of council who have not, I would suggest that you do so as well. Folks from our community were invited to attend and to have an easy conversation on any topic on their minds. There were no qualifiers about what subjects would be tolerated, what questions could be asked of the mayor. And I took notes on the entire coffee, all of the exchanges with the citizens, but simply quoting what the mayor said cannot convey his tone, delivery, body language. Those factors are also an integral part of verbal abuse, and the video already shows it all. I will say that the problem started about 5 minutes into the coffee. After 10 minutes, a citizen, in response to one of the mayor's verbal attacks, said, quote, "I don't think you're being as professional as you should be." Well, what the mayor chose to do again and again that day was not just unprofessional, it was abusive. In addition to the examples I've already given, another example of abuse, verbal abuse, is making people question their own perception. That's something I want to talk about, because several times people made statements and the mayor didn't just discount, he incorrectly asserted that they were wrong. This makes someone question their own perception, which is a component of verbal abuse. About 5 minutes into the coffee, one person asked why our city did not hold public forums before deciding to create a fire department. That's a reasonable question. The mayor told this person they were wrong, saying that the matter had come up in council meetings and the local paper. Well, those venues are not public forums or hearings, and telling folks that they're wrong when they're not, and putting people in a position to question their reality causes confusion. Elected officials are meant to help people, to explain, to inform, not to mislead. His words were degrading, condescending, and he interrupted and talked over people who had come to be heard. It was not a friendly conversation that the mayor's message advertises in our city newsletters, and his behavior was a choice. We, as council people, we don't need to agree with everything that is said to us or every question that's asked, but we must be able to adequately manage our own behavior. Because when we're unwilling or unable to do this, we put our city at risk. The third and final aspect of the risk from the coffee is providing inaccurate information to the public. I said earlier that the mayor told several citizens they were wrong, when instead they were correct. Orono did not plan, advertise, or host any public forum or hearing before making the decision to create a fire department. Making false statements as an elected official, especially as the figurehead for our city, is a big risk because it's possible for people to find accurate data. Also, making the people who've put trust in you question their perceptions causes distress and distrust. And this ultimately undermines the relationship between our entire city government and the public that we serve. Everyone is affected once trust is broken. Broken trust is a risk because it can be costly, financially and otherwise, to repair it. And the other part of this is that citizens are not the only people who fact-check what our mayor says. At the August 20th Long Lake Council meeting, statements made by our mayor about fire service at the coffee were reviewed in detail. Statements the mayor made on a number of issues were found to be false by the council and addressed point by point on record. Orono is currently the defendant in a lawsuit brought by the city of Long Lake, and what our mayor says, whether it's at the dais or at a coffee, matters. So on the note of legal liability, it is worth noting that the LMCIT, the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust, that covers Orono's liability, also covers the liability of many other cities that are members. So when our city takes on unnecessary risk and requires legal representation by the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust, all other cities who pay into this insurance can be affected. So when the mayor hosts coffee events and chooses to make statements about public forums, fire service contracts, or anything else that is not accurate, our city takes on increased liability. All members of council are equally responsible for the integrity and culture of our city, and I'm calling attention to this behavior because as a fellow council member, I do not condone it, and it forces our city to shoulder unnecessary liability. It's also something that should never have to be experienced by citizens. And now that I've laid out these issues, I'll offer a few suggestions about what we could be doing differently going forward. And 2 questions our council should ask are, what is the purpose of the coffees? And are they accomplishing this purpose? The last coffee was not the only one to involve heated exchanges and poor behavior on the mayor's part. I'll point out that while respectful behavior on everyone's part is preferred, the mayor, not the citizens, sets the tone for his events. If he cannot or will not adhere to basic professional behavior, our city will continue to face risk. It's my opinion that by and large, mayor coffee events are not serving our citizens or our city and should be discontinued. And at minimum, I suggest that a staff member attend so that some type of structure or some types of guardrails are in place during these social hours. And staff can also answer questions that the mayor is not able to, like details about the budget, which did come up frequently at this last coffee event. So in closing, my goal in reporting on this tonight is to inform the full council, the staff, and the city attorney that the mayor coffee events are having a serious and negative impact on our city, and that I believe we need to take steps to minimize further risk. That's all I have. Thank you.
I was so inspired by her that I felt like it was really important to sort of follow her lead and just be quiet. Like, don't respond, don't clap, don't anything. And it seemed like everyone in the audience was following suit until Denny just started to lay into her, at which point the majority of the audience just erupted into claps and applause for her.
Well, I gotta say, that's probably the most unprofessional, that's probably the most unprofessional diatribe I have probably ever heard. Because everything I had at that coffee, I'm talking now.
I think that it is also notable that during Councilmember Veach's council report, that instead of also condemning the sort of verbal abuse and bad behavior from Mayor Walsh, she instead had a lot of excuses to offer on his behalf.
And I think it takes everyone looking for doing something different. It's not one person. And I know the responsibility of running a meeting lies on the mayor. And I wouldn't want that job right now. I'm just telling you. I think the job that I'm sitting in right now is hard enough. And running the meetings when we can't have conversations is very tough.
It was another crazy night at Orono City Council. Go to figureoutfire.com, learn a little bit more, or ask questions. Submit them to your council members. There's a Get Involved page on my website and lots of ways for you to get involved. Thanks so much for watching.